Oh. Hopefully it tastes good. Do you want some?
No, not now.
I could like change or like maybe give people something to think about, like through short films or like anything that I make about like what a Muslim person is, or like what a brown person is, or like, you know, the experience of like immigrants and all of that stuff. Like I'd like to provide like an honest insight of like what that could be. And it's not necessarily being like, watch this and love me. Like, it's just like, watch this and like, whatever you relate to, like, just take it. If whatever you don't, just leave it type thing. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Catherine Park and I'm being interviewed right now.
But at the end. And so what happened?
I think I've had like phases. So when of course I grew up in a Korean culture because that was the only thing I knew at the time. And so primary school, I'd say I'd consider myself more Korean. And then come high school, I think high school as well, honestly, I was like deep into like K-pop, K-drama, Korean culture. But I still never like was Korean enough to hang out with the Koreans at school. So yeah, I was in like a sort of grey area of like, I didn't feel, I was embracing Korean culture almost as if I wasn't Korean, if that makes sense. Yeah, that's the one thing that stopped me from fully embracing, is that I've never gotten along 100% with Korean people either. So I was always in the limbo of like, oh, I can't be like completely whitewashed, but then I can't hang out with the Koreans, so like I don't know where I sit type thing. So I think figuring it out by myself through my family and through my own like interests and stuff, I think is a start for me.
My anglicized name is Karyn Wee, and I wouldn't say original name, but my Chinese name is Huang Fengling. I've never liked my Chinese name. Like, it's too long, like each syllable. It's too long, as in like
Karyn Wee.
No, my Chinese name.
Well, yeah.
You know what's cute? Like I May or something, but like Fengling, it's like so.
Fengling.
It's like so long. It's got like 8.
Oh my god.
My full name.
No.
I've actually never heard your Chinese name. And I just heard it and I was like, can I please know?
It's Huang Fengling.
Oh.
But nobody has ever called me that. Like I don't consider it my name at all. It's just like the middle name of my passport. Nobody has ever called me that.
Nobody.
Nobody. I've never identified with it. If someone called me it, I would actually be like, what are you saying? The only people who call me it are people like you and my friends who are like, assert dominance over your friends by calling them the ethnic name, and then they say Fengling, and I'm like, okay. Anyway, so. Oh my god, I remember my ex-boyfriend. We were in uni class together, and it was like ice-breaking activity. And it was like, talk to the person next to you, and then tell them the last 3 things that you learned about your new friend. And I was sitting next to my boyfriend, and it was like first year uni, so it was like, we didn't even talk about it because like we already know each other. We just say whatever. And then one of the things that he said about me was that I was Chinese. And I just thought that was so weird. It wasn't racist per se, but it was just a strange marker, right? Because like one, what that sounds like to other people is that I'm like, just got off the boat yesterday, but I'm Australian. It was just a funny thing to say. So it was that sort of thing, but it's not, I don't know, it's not racist, it's just reminding me of my otherness every day because, fuck, I'm not like, I can't even speak Chinese. Yeah. And then the racist incidents from strangers is like, yeah, people have said chink on the street to me, I think. Yeah. Which is crazy. I'm actually like, oh, fuck, that happened to me.
If you, like, I feel like, also because I'm mixed, I'm like jungle Asian. I'm not like, kind of like, I'm not like Korean or Japanese, or like kind of like very more like prestigious kind of like Asian cultures. So I think you feel that when you're a kid because you can see that like you don't look like like Lucy Liu or very like non-mixed Asians or very like fancy kind of heritage-based Asians. But yeah, so yeah, it comes up here and there.
We're rolling.
This is Josh's interview. Take hopefully the only one. I was born here, but then my family moved back to the Philippines and lived there for the first 5 years of my life. So I came back here when I was like 6. which is interesting because it's just always meant that I've always felt a little bit like between cultures, because like I was obviously too Philo to be Australian, but I was, whenever we went back, too Australian to be Philo. And like, yeah, like it's definitely affected on my sense of patriotism too, because like, I remember coming back to Australia, which technically I was born in, and like one of the things that mum and dad did was they put like the national anthem up on the fridge, and it was just like, you know, all the little like Australian cultural icons that you learn about, and I was learning about them as an outsider, even though technically I'm the one person in my family who was born here in Australia and who has Australian citizenship automatically and stuff like that. So yeah. If you're a person of color within the white community, as long as you do as the Romans do and play as the whites do, then you're fine. Like I was pretty whitewashed, and part of that was that I just didn't bring up anything relating to my culture. And when I think about it, yeah, I definitely didn't like grow into being proud of my culture until like at least uni, when I was like with people from lots of different cultural backgrounds, because when in high school I was like I wasn't the only Asian kid, I wasn't the only person of color. There were a few people of color within our group and a couple of Asians, but like you didn't really mention your culture. You just like you definitely assimilated into like the white one. You had the beers with the guys and you talk shit about everything as an Australian would. You didn't really mention anything that was uniquely Filipino, because then it would just be looked upon as weird, I guess. It would be that thing of like, what are you bringing this up for? Like, you're the only one that knows about this. We don't know what any of this is. It was just, yeah, weird.
Hi, I'm Osama, which is the name, like there's no difference. It's just that white people will say Osama because it's spelled with an O. Not their fault, really. It should just be spelled differently. But my full name is Osama Hebah or Rehman. That's my full name. I'm brown, by the way. Well, a lot of people have suggested, especially recruiters, is like change your name to Sam. And in all honesty, when I order coffee in a really busy place, I say Sam. It's not because I'm stripping myself of my identity, but because you have to repeat Osama like 5 times and then spell it out as well. So it's just for convenience. But I would never do that, because chances are, if someone has a name with my name, if someone has a problem with my name being Osama, they'll have a problem with someone else with my identity, so I don't want to be in that place anyway. Well, that's the thing, there's a lot of universal stuff, because you're just people at the end of the day. Like, it's more about class than culture. Like, even between white and brown people, if you're of a similar class, you're going to be living similar lives, like buying the same brands, dealing with the same problems. We're all people. Struggle to get the same jobs, drive the same commutes. Same thing, really. It's not much difference. Everyone's just trying to get by.
It was intentionally meant to make me feel this way, but I think that blind spot and I think that lack of awareness is interesting, and just figuring out how to navigate that. I mean, when was the last time you got asked where you were from?
I mean, would you say that it makes you feel like an outsider most of the time?
Back then, yeah. Definitely nowadays. I think now, because I have a more comfortable sense of like my cultural identity, I don't feel as much of an outsider. Or it's like, I feel like an outsider, but not necessarily so isolated. Like before, whenever I thought of like my culture, it made me feel rather like alone. Whereas like now, even though I'm still positioned outside what is like the white mainstream of Australian society, I at least feel a bit more like at peace with that. Like I'm outside, but like that's where I exist, and that's not going to change anytime soon. And I'm at least a bit more at home there. Yeah.
People keep filming without telling me. There's always
I know, right? Where are these
there's
consent
always
forms?
like
Karyn,
there's a camera
we
right
haven't signed
here,
any
and I was like,
consent forms.
stop!
Sue you.
Tell me.
Where are your
They want
release forms,
answers,
Karyn?
Karyn.
Yeah, I can ask you to blow my face.
Your silence is deafening.
Yeah.
So the whole
For anyone watching this documentary, Karyn hasn't told anyone jack shit.
I remember. So that we
Yeah, I just put a pin on it for the plane.
Inner West. Inner West.
But yeah, no, of course I've had